Lily Klein. This is the Heard It Here podcast. I got Emma Eldridge, our livestock judging coach, Keller Metzker with Lazy 8 Media, and then Catherine Rush, our student and work study.
Keller Metzker here with Lazy 8 Media. He's an alumni from here and graduated in 2024. So we're going to ask him a little bit about his experience here throughout Colby, and as well as picturing and videoing these last few days. Keller, with that said, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, as Emma had said, I was here at Colby Community College, graduated in 24. Wasn't a part of the beef production program, but got to come out here and pester Adelaide a little bit in my time here. And then was part of the feed yard program, so was able to be a part of that. But got to help out a little bit with the bull sale and everything a little bit, just as a regular ag student here at Colby. But currently, I'm a senior at West Texas A&M University, studying ag media and communications. So I've got a lot of technical training and opportunity to learn about picture and video and digital media. And I'm putting a lot of that to some good use this weekend as I've had the opportunity to picture and video the bulls here for Colby's bull test sale, and really happy for the opportunity to help out my alma mater and use my services where they can be a little helpful and to gain some useful experience as well.
Yeah, I think it's been great to have you back as an alumni and get your perspective on how the cattle have come so far in the time that Adelaide's been here, and see those genetics come into play. And I think not only does that speak in terms of the 5 heifers that we have coming into this sale, but as well as the consignor quality of bulls that have come into this program. What's your opinion on that? Do you think the quality has just grown astronomically?
I would agree with that sentiment, and actually wrote an article for a class at WT, and it actually got featured in Drover's Magazine, and kind of highlighting the work that Adelaide has done, and trying to commend her for that, and kind of what she'd taken over when she started with the program here, and kind of where she's taken it from there. And I'm a proud alumni and really proud of the work that Adelaide and her students are doing, because it takes a lot of work, and it's all day, every day, and it pays off when you really do that. But ultimately, it's about having a direction, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. If I can speak to the work that she's done, is kind of taking just a herd of cattle and just like before, just kind of run cattle. We had whatever it was, and she had a direction and took it that way and stuck with it. And that takes some gut and tenacity to make a decision and stick by it.
Patience.
And patience, and to see it come to fruition. Because when you make that mating decision today for cattle that are going to be conceived here in about 2 or 3 months, they're not going to be born, for another 9 months, and they're going to be. You make the decision today for the mating, then they'll be conceived in about 2 months, and then 9 months from there they'll be born, and then it's another year until they're coming up and they'll be in this bull sale.
Yep.
So to see these cattle and the bulls that Colby has are the first crop, right, that came from your management decisions and your genetics, and to compare these bulls to the bulls that were here, just 2 years ago when I was still here, is astronomically better. And I'm just really excited to see how they continue to get better, as your program continues to gain momentum.
I think something that Keller talked about, being an alumni and coming back to see it. And that's something for me that was, stellar, because I graduated just 1 year before you. And, at the time, was our beef production program at where it is today? Absolutely not. And I think that, like he said, it takes a lot of gut and courage to just get in here, make it what it needs to be, and take it in the right direction. And that's something for me that's super important, because, as the judging coach recruiting for these programs and things like that, those students are going to be students. And so they have to have a degree path and a program to follow. And, being able to have successful programs going in the right direction, it's just super important to have success, and seeing that direction it's going, I think it excites people. Not even just us alumni, but I feel like as students, you have to understand the appreciation that has to go into that. Yes, are you here the late nights, the early mornings, and putting all that work in? Absolutely. But see where it benefits us.
Mm-hmm.
It's worthwhile when you got great cattle, when sale day is really great. It's not worthwhile when there's nothing to write home about.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. But it's a true sign of that adversity, because, like you said, that success makes it a lot easier. But it's about overcoming, when you don't do things right. And this was, I believe, your first job out of your master's program, and maybe didn't know everything, but you learn a lot pretty quick. And not every decision you make is going to be the right one. but it's learning from those and getting better, every single day. And then when you have those successes, coasting on that momentum makes it a lot more fun.
I completely agree with that. We talk a lot about, the genetic side and phenotypic side of things. And, today, the last couple of days, we've looked at the phenotypic side of all this livestock and just trying to picture and video and do them justice. And, I think when you sit down and it comes to brass tacks and you look at the paper side of things, and that's what really interests me. I come from a show family background, but numbers are still important to us at the end of the day. And I think that that's something that has been instilled into this program, making it an elite option. Because not only do the cattle phenotypically measure up to high standards, but then you turn around and look at their genetic background. And I think that just hammers home. And that's what makes me excited to write home about, is not only do the cattle phenotypically hit your measure, but then turn around and back that on paper to make them very productive to put out in the pasture as well, not only take them to a show ring.
I agree with that. And I think that's especially where, the cattle here at Colby excel is in that genetic background. And we talked about, the timeline of these cattle, what it takes to mate, and then, the conception, gestation, and raise them up to this. And then we're making bulls, and then they're going to sire offspring that hopefully are going into the terminal side. So that's another 3 years. And that's where we're really being judged. When these cattle, these bulls that are in the test now, their sons in about 2 years are going to go to the rail. And, that's where we're really judging when we get the carcass data back. And I think that's really cool. And that's another thing that I highlighted in that story that I wrote about Adelaide, is about getting the carcass data back and using that data as a tool to help you get better, and using that data to be a parameter and just shoot for better marbling and better carcass quality and yield grading, because that's really what it's about. We make cattle, but at the end of the day, we're in the beef business, because that's what we're about, is making meat and using cattle to do it.
Yeah.
And speaking of data, all of our bulls here, they go through a feed test. So that's also really interesting to see how they've been here for months and they end up growing up into turning the boys into the men. And it's really interesting to see on picture day how they all come through the pen and just how they've grown and all the hard work that we've put into them.
And that's nice too, and a good learning opportunity for students, because some breeds are expected to do really well, like Charolais. They are expected to do extremely well on the test. They are a terminal breed. But then other breeds that you may not be as familiar with, you get to learn more about, where some other breeds may surprise us and do really well. That's really great for our consigners to get that information. It's really awesome for our bull buyers to get that information, because at the end of the day, even if you don't live in a drought prominent place like Northwest Kansas, having that animal that is efficient is going to save you money. At the end of the day, that she's an easy keeper, he's an easy keeper, they're going to put that on to their offspring. That's going to save money into your wallet.
There's no doubt. I think that's kind of what sets this test up apart, is not only do you include growth data on the bulls, but also with the intake.
And that's my big thing, conversion rate of cattle. How much input does it take to get output? And so you want to see what kind of feed and how much feed does it take for them cattle to grow. And obviously, we're in an industry of easy input, low maintenance cattle. Those are the most successful for us, not only in terms of dollar bill, but what does it take in terms of cost to get to the rail. And so that's what I think is so interesting about a bull test, is you get to learn their conversion rate. How many pounds of feed go into creating that animal and getting them to grow to their full potential size. Because if that animal takes the least amount of input and still has the most amount of output, their offspring is more liable to hit with more pounds of marketable product to the rail. And that's, like he said, we're in the business of beef. Pounds matter, and that's what sells.
And as a producer, you can pick bulls that work for your program. Certain producers, they might, want that maximum production at whatever cost it is if they have the resources, and they can pick that bull, right? And then the people that maybe don't have the resources, they can pick a more moderate bull that fits their needs, or find them, the optimal bull. And you can kind of pick and choose and find what works for you.
Most definitely. I think that helps too, because in a bull test, you learn the different versatility kinds. You could have an easy keeping or a high growth bull, a more maternally based bull that has the higher calving ease option. And do you get to see, does this bull with a high calving ease, low birth weight option still able to put on the pounds of carcass that you need? Or do you need the more carcass driven bull that maybe is not easy at fleshing and takes more input, but he's going to put the pounds of product into your cattle? And like you said, if you have the resources, you can go either way with that. but what fits your program, your cattle, and your operation. You get a lot of that data out of this feed test, and it better set you up for success in the long run, and you have more knowledge going into it.
And a test like this with multiple breeds, you can serve a lot of different needs versus a traditional production sale that one producer or two producers might put on, where it's all the same type genetics, and a lot of the bulls are out of all the same sires, or a lot of the same cows, or a lot of the same cow families. Or in this line, there's a lot more diversity and different options to pick from.
Most definitely.
And along with receiving data on the feed side, we also get the carcass data, carcass ultrasounding, that kind of completes our picture, so you can tailor a bull to your operation and what your goals are. So that's nice that we do that.
I think uniquely for us, not only do we have the option of many different breeds, and that's something for me, like, not only do we have a versatile option in terms of different kinds of livestock, but we also have the different options in terms of breed and genetic types. I mean, we have everything from Angus to Charolais and down to Balancers. And and then some crosses in terms of Sim Angus. And, them cattle are all tailored to different operations, and they come from different operations. But who's to say the next guy sitting next to you doesn't need what you offered, or vice versa? And so I think that that's super important too, because while I come from a Hereford family, who's to say I don't need an Angus bull to make white face crosses, F1s? So what does your operation need? And I think that when you come to this bull sale and you sit down and you go to brass tacks, whatever breed you need, more often than not, is here, and what you need to fit your operation is here. And so I think that that's a very unique opportunity for this junior college to be able to put forward, is not only the fact that we can have cattle with excellent data options, but as well as what fits you is more often than not in that pen out there. You just got to search for what you need, and the data's there.
And data is power. The more data you can have, the more management decisions you can make.
You can't monitor what you don't measure.
Right. And we always talk about, when you first roll up to a place, the first thing you look at is see them on the hoof. And I agree with that statement in terms of being, on the livestock judging side of things. But also, in most of our contests, they have a piece of paper with numbers on it for the bulls. And that goes into your decision when you're standing there, making that decision. Or any national show now, that every bull class, even down to the heifers, they have their EPDs sitting in front of them. And so, we went from an industry that had nothing to do with numbers and didn't care, to an industry where it's down to the selection criteria. And that makes those tough decisions. And I think, as an industry, like we've said over and over again, yes, do we have different facets of the industry that do different things? Absolutely. But our common goal at the end of the day is to produce livestock that create pounds to the rail. And so I think we've started to see more of that combination of not only phenotypically sound, good livestock, but also genetically. And, the geno side is very interesting for me, growing up on a primarily Hereford family, is that maybe our numbers aren't the best. And I understand that. Do I think we have great, amazing looking cattle that are sound and phenotypically great? Absolutely. But I think there's a lot of bulls out there that check those marks for you as well, and don't necessarily have to be white face, black face, or vice versa. They just bring value. And I think that that's something that's just very unique when we start to combine those two facets of the industry.
So it's nice that also with our weaned calves, they either go back into our breeding operation, or they go into our bull test and sale, or they go to Carpenter Cattle Company and they get fed there, and then they go from there to National Beef Packing Plant. For us, that's really nice because we do look at the EPD side. We focus heavily on that. Also, I think, to me personally, the best cattleman is somebody who can balance both the genotypic and the phenotypic side of an animal, and find that perfect mesh. So it's nice that we get to look at the EPDs and have that as a data marker tool, and also then with sending our calves to carpenters, getting the data from National Beef and seeing how they grade on the rail, and being able to make management decisions from there, and actually seeing how that's another data point to see the progress. And this year was the first year that I got calves, that data back on our calves, that were my genetic influence, and it's incredible to see the difference from the first year to this current year. So it's cool that we get to use that as a data marker, and an educational tool as well. So
Most definitely, I think it's incredible to just see the growth over time and see what you've put into it and finally seeing the output of it. I think it's just an incredible opportunity for the students here. So
that then too ties into the patience. It takes I've been here 4 years, and last year's calf crop was the first year, or well, 2 years ago. So three years before you can see the difference you make. So a lot of patience goes into it.
And being a freshman here, it's definitely really cool to see what you guys have done, and obviously I didn't witness it before. You guys did, obviously, but it's really cool to learn from that information, and it makes it all the more worthwhile for coming to Colby and spending all the time I do out here. So yeah.
You spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
So Catherine's actually one of our work studies, and she spends an incredible amount of time. All our students put in a ton of work into our program. Even students who weren't in our program. A lot of the livestock judging kids, they're going to be out at the beef unit. They're here just along with my students, picture and video day. We really we kind of go hand in hand with each other. They're going to be here on sale day helping. My students do a lot of the heavy lifting. Our program would not be as successful without my students. They run this program. They do a tremendous job. We would not be anywhere where we are now if it weren't for my students' willingness to work hard and maintain a good standard. So.
Well, you heard it here. Thanks for tuning in to a very special edition of this podcast.